Hello everybody, this is Ahmed Musli again, and as everybody has known by now, the dust settled over the weekend, and Nintendo apparently revealed the Zelda timeline in the Hyrule Historia book that I've been talking about that has been released in Japan Wednesday. So I'm gonna attempt what obviously this cut off my previous train of thought of what I was going to explain in the videos, and it's apparently really different from what I was thinking. But in the same time, there's a lot of good that Nintendo did in the timeline, and in the same time, a lot of bad things that I'm going to attempt to explain here. So what we're going to do here is go progressively, step by step, and see what Nintendo changed or attempted to do in the timeline to make it better or worse. So what I've displayed here is the timeline we all know and love, what has been confirmed for the past few years or so. As you see here, Skyward Sword follows Ocarina of Time, and then Ocarina of Time splits into the child timeline, which is Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, and the adult timeline, which is the Flood timeline, or this Ocean era, or the New Hyrule era, whatever they call it, where the Wind Waker, Phantom Hourglass, and Spirit tracks. And we see here on the left, Lonely there, the classic games, A Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, followed by another era which features the different Link with The Legend of Zelda and The Adventure of Link, the classic Nintendo games. So let's start with the good. First, see, I'm going to attempt to fill in the blanks here. So, there we go. So, what I did here is, you guessed it, I attached Ocarina of Time to A Link to the Past, and A Link to the Past is followed by the Oracle games, and which is followed by Link's Awakening. So let's start step by step here, and what we're going to do here is follow what we did in the last video. Remember what I've been talking about the common features, the common elements, which are the most important ones in the Zelda timeline. I'm going to attempt to write them off again here, so I can remind you guys. Triforce, Ganon, Master Sword, Link and Zelda, and other main characters. Important timeline spanning events, or we could say the intro, the ending, stuff like that. And I guess developer commentary will be thrown out the window for now, because we've basically got the most recent stuff. So what Nintendo did here is they actually branched off in a third timeline, which features the classic games. In other words, Ocarina of and they did it in a really smart and interesting way. This hasn't been suggested for it. It's been suggested many times before by theorists that the classic games are in a third timeline. But Nintendo did it in a way that says that basically A Link to the Past is what happens if Link fails in Ocarina of Time. Yeah, so basically when you get a game over in Ocarina of Time, this is what happens. A Link to the Past is what follows. So yeah, it's very interesting that they put the game over as a canon, and at the same time it does follow up. I think that's the only way that they could do it logically and make a lot of sense. Because if they put A Link to the Past over one of these two timelines here, they have to explain and ramble a lot. It's gonna be a long stretch. So they need to add a lot of outside or like manual type remember the old instruction manual, so they're gonna add a lot of commentary there. So what they did here is basically say that it's a scenario that when Link fails, it makes sense, and it does follow their train of thought in a sense that the Wind Waker started up as what if the adult timeline continues. So yeah, in the first place, Nintendo only thought of one string of timeline, which is this one here. they never thought of branching out until they started developing the Wind Waker, in fact. So yeah, the Wind Waker started as a what if scenario. What if the adult timeline continued? So in that sense, we could say A Link to the Past is, another what if scenario. And what if Link died? How will it continue? And it is really interesting and does make sense, because when you look at Link to the Past, let's go bit by bit. The main thing we want to talk about in Link to the Past, which I've constantly mentioned in my previous videos, is the Imprisoning War. And that's the major link of A Link to the Past and the major timeline important event that relates it to Ocarina of Time. When you see the Imprisoning War, we'll talk about it then and now. Then, before we thought of featuring a third timeline like that, we had to, try to explain the Imprisoning War and how to attach it to either the child or the adult timeline. Because originally the Imprisoning War, before the Wind Waker, before this whole split timeline debacle, Ocarina of Time was the story of the Imprisoning War. That's the original idea that Nintendo had when they were developing Ocarina of Time. And they thought, and in the same time we started thinking, when you look at Link to the Past intro, it does feature common elements with Ocarina of Time, but at the same time there are a lot of different aspects to it. For example, the Imprisoning War doesn't feature one hero. It doesn't feature a Link that saves them all. It actually features the Knights of Hyrule and Hyrule fighting back in order to imprison Ganon. And it does feature Ganon having the full Triforce instead of having the Triforce of Power, of part of the Triforce as we see in Ocarina of Time. So that was Nintendo's original aspect or original idea. And that's years back. And when they put the third timeline, this original idea is actually, they kept it faithful. So now we could say the same thing here. And Link gets defeated. That's the what if scenario, Link to the Past, right? So we, of course, the big debate that's going on right now is when exactly does Link get defeated in Ocarina of Time? Is it the final battle? So that's going to be a really cool aspect of people, coming up with a lot of, even if it's fan fiction, they're coming up with a lot of interesting theories of how Link gets defeated in Ocarina of Time, or where exactly does he get defeated. I'm glad Nintendo kept it open, so even though they revealed the full timeline, people can keep talking about this. So where does Link get defeated? Does Ganon actually catch him up in the Chamber of Sages when he's sleeping and kills him off there, or does he kill him off in the final battle, or does he kill him off before he actually travels to or actually gets travels to the future or sleeps for 7 years? So that's going to be a really interesting point of topic. Anyway, so yeah, as I was saying, it's faithful to the original idea. The Imprisoning War doesn't feature a Link. It features, Hyrule fighting back. So when Link gets defeated, the Knights of Hyrule, and they're going to start fighting back. And obviously, we could interpret that Ganondorf, in that point of time, when Links get defeated in Ocarina of Time, he gets hold of the whole Triforce, and there, the 7 wise men, or the 7 sages, in the new translation of A Link to the Past for the Game Boy Advance, they actually seal Ganon in the Sacred Realm, or the Dark World. So to buy time, basically, for some reason, even though Ganon has the Triforce, he still wants to build up power in order to invade Hyrule, which is why he doesn't get his wish immediately. Link to the Past is the only game that shows this apparent complication when you get over the Triforce. It's not like it grants your wish like that. It does, but it takes time to get your wish done. And the same, you could say that when even Link touches the Triforce at the end of the Link to the Past, suddenly like a flash happens and the happy ending happens and all of that. I like to interpret it in a sense that he didn't get his wish immediately. It was progressive. So yeah, it does make a lot of sense. Before, we had to, explain it in a really, it was a long stretch, especially when they added the split timeline and they added these games in. It was really hard to attach A Link to the Past unless you're saying stuff like legends change over time, and it's not exactly